Hey guys, a lot of you have had a lot of questions about number 9 and 10 on the homework this week. So I'm going to help you with number 9 and then leave number 10 up to you. So you can see I have number 9 and 10 up here. I did send out a hint earlier yesterday letting you know with 9 and 10 you're going to have to use the quadratic formula after you do your synthetic division, and that it should result, or it's going to result in your final two roots being imaginary roots, which means there's going to be an I involved. So I gave out those hints. Some of you were still just confused, so I'm just going to go ahead and do number 9, and hopefully that works out any kinks that you might need to get through number 10. All right? So here I have y squared equals 2x cubed plus x squared plus 1. The first thing it wants all of us to do is to list our possible rational roots. So remember, that was our list of our constant divided by the factors of our constant divided by the factors of our leading coefficient. In class, I said P's and Q's, okay? So in the alphabet, P comes before Q. So 2 right here is our P, and Q is our 1. But I also said in class, queens come before the prince. So when we make our division, we have to put the factors of 1 divided by the factors of 2, okay? What are the factors of 1? 1 and 1. That's your numerator, okay? And then what are your factors of 2? 1 and 2. Those are your denominators. So when you do your list, you have to do 1 divided by 1, and you have to do 1 divided by 2. Remembering, we have the positive and negative of all of these answers, okay? So what's the list of possible rational roots? Well, that is going to be 1 divided by 1 is positive and negative 1. And then positive and negative 1 divided by 2 gives me positive and negative 1/2. Okay, so that's part A. That is your list. Part B, find all actual roots by synthetic division and then quadratic formula. So there's 2 ways to go about this. Way 1, you could start plugging in 1 or negative 1 or 1/2 or negative 1/2 into the equation for x and see which one gives you 0, okay? That's a way to find a root, and that root would be the first one on my list. And then we would continue. I'm using synthetic division, so you can put in the box, you can put 1, negative 1, 1/2, or negative 1/2 in the box, okay? You can do it 4 times if you want to. The whole goal is to make sure you get a remainder of 0, okay? That's how you know you've picked the right one. We got to also be careful with my coefficients here. Notice it's an x cubed. So I need a coefficient to represent x cubed, x squared, x, and then the constant. So my coefficient for x cubed is 2. Our coefficient for x squared is 1. There is no x in this equation, so I got to put a 0. Okay? Then my constant of 1 on the end. Okay? We're going to drop the 2. Remember, our goal is that this last number has to be a 0. Okay? So we can start plugging things in, or you can use your graphing calculator. Okay? So I'm going to bring up Desmos for you guys. You can, some of you have an app, some of you can use this website, some of you have your own graphing calculator. Either way, you're going to go to where your graph is, plug in an equation. So for this one, we're going to plug in y equals, and then 2x cubed plus x squared, and then plus 1. Oh, I have another equal sign. I apologize. Like that. There we go. Now it's showing up. Okay, so I can see that this graph has one spot where it crosses the x-axis. Look at that, negative 1. That's what I need to use in my synthetic division. Notice it doesn't cross anywhere else. It doesn't mean I didn't do anything wrong. It just means out of these 3 solutions, because it's a cubic function, so we know there's 3 total, one of them is real. The other 2 are going to be imaginary roots. Okay? But this shows me right here that negative 1 is going to be what I need to put into our shelf over here, our magic box. So that's what I'm going to use to complete my synthetic division. Negative 1 times 2 gives me negative 2. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. -1 times -1 is +1. 0 plus 1 is +1. -1 times 1 is -1. Look at that. 1 minus 1 is 0. So that did work. Okay. So I know one of my roots is -1. I'm not done. A lot of you did this much and then stopped. Okay. You are not done. You now have a quadratic to solve. Okay. You had a cubic. You divided one x out. So now we have a quadratic to move on with. Okay. This quadratic is going to be 2x squared minus 1x plus 1. Okay. This is a new quadratic that we have to solve. And in my notes, we were able to use slip and slide, but for these two problems, slip and slide is not going to work. So that's why I gave you the hint to use the quadratic formula. Remember, this is our A, this is our B, and this is our C. Okay, so to set up our quadratic formula, we have x equals negative b, which is -1, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, and that's all going to be divided by 2a. Okay, simplify. -1 on the outside is just +1. Plus or minus the square root of -1 squared, which is 1. And then we have -4 times 2 times 1, which is -8, all over 2 times 2, which is 4. Simplify underneath the radical, we have 1 minus 8. So now we have 1 plus or minus the square root of -7 over 4. Okay, we're almost done. So again, some of you got here but didn't know what to do. You left it alone like this, or you randomly made the square root disappear. You can't just take the square root away. The square root of 7 is the square root of 7, okay? There's no whole number. Square root of 7, okay, does not equal 7. Some of you just write 7. Can't do it, okay? Those are two different numbers. The square root of 7 is like 2 point something, okay? It's not going to work. Not the same thing. So please, please, please don't do that. The only thing we can do for this is I noticed that there is a negative sign underneath our square root. All the way back in August, we did complex numbers and imaginary numbers. And what were those? I's were the representation of a negative under a square root. That's what this is. So all I can do for this problem is take an I out. So I have 1 plus or minus I. 7 is still under the square root. We didn't move it. We didn't touch it. All we did was take the negative out, and it's still being divided by 4. Okay? That right there is two solutions. Those are your other two. 1 plus I square root 7 over 4 and 1 minus I square root of 7 over 4. Those are your other two roots. So when I go back to listing my roots up here, I'm going to include 1 plus or minus I square root 7 over 4. That is all three of my roots for this problem. Okay, -1, 1 plus I square root 7 over 4, and 1 minus I square root 7 over 4. Okay, remember your highest degree tells you how many roots you're going to have. So hopefully that answers questions for you guys to help you with number 10. Number 10, not even missing any placeholders, so you don't have to put a 0 like we did in number 9. If you do have any other questions, y'all keep asking them. I like questions. And good luck. See you next time.